Okay, so in this video we're going to be looking at how Swift is transferable to all languages. So once you learn one coding language, you can transfer that knowledge to a whole variety of other languages. So let's have a look. We can look at one language that you've learned, which is Swift, or any language really, and you can really just apply that to a whole variety. It's just about learning those different syntaxes and different styles within that language. So let's start off with a simple GUI, which is our graphical user interface for Swift. Up here we've got a label, a text field for the user to enter in the data, and then a button. And we're going to look at how multiple different languages would code for a very similar program, a very simple temperature converter. So this is our graphical user interface that you'd build on Xcode Storyboard, and now we're going to look at the code behind that for Swift and then the code behind it in several other languages. So in Swift, we've got our IB action, or just function, and it would be convert, and we'll send an object. So that's just declared automatically when you connect a button and say action, and we name our button convert. So once that button's clicked, it calls this function here. And remember, that happens automatically when you drag your button and click action. In that, we create a variable, var, degrees C, and we make that equal to text entered, which is the name of our text field, dot text, dot toInt. Now that toInt converts the string to an integer, because remember the text entered is just recorded as a string. We need it to be recorded as a number. Then you've got var, another variable declared, degrees Fahrenheit equals 0. That's just declaring that variable. Then we go degrees Fahrenheit equals degrees C, which we got from our text field, times 9 divided by 5 plus 32, and that's the conversion between degrees C and Fahrenheit. And then we display the results. And the display results text field was our top one. We go display results.text equals, and we just put in quotation marks, the temperature of Fahrenheit is backslash degrees Fahrenheit variable, and that will put whatever that variable is. So that's how we do it in Swift. Let's look at how it's very similar in other languages. So in Python, we want an output of enter degrees C. The user then enters their temperature, and then you convert that to Fahrenheit, and we write out what it is in degrees C and what it is in Fahrenheit as an output. Let's look at the coding behind that. So, input provided by the user in degrees Celsius. So first of all, we need to take that input. So we go Celsius equals float, that's a type of integer. Input, and this is just typing it to the outer screen, so enter degrees Celsius, and then we want to calculate it in Fahrenheit. So we go Fahrenheit equals degrees Celsius, or just Celsius, which was the variable that we created here, remember, times 1.8, which is the same as the version we had back here, which was, oops, just go back up a second. 1.8 is the same as 9 divided by 5. So Celsius times 1.8, or times 9 divided by 5, plus 32. That's our conversion. And then we have this print. And this little percentage sign, dot 1f, 1f, is our first variable that we send. So degrees Celsius is equal to percentage 0, dot 1f degrees Fahrenheit. And then we send our two variables. So the percentage sign, so Celsius, Fahrenheit. So the first time we see percentage, it's going to say Celsius, so the number in Celsius is, and then the second time it's going to put in our second variable, which is Fahrenheit. So our output would be 37.5 degrees Celsius is equal to 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's how we do it in Python. Again, similar, but there is some distinct differences in the syntax, and it's just learning those changes. So in Java, we've got a very similar situation again. We create a class this time, which is like our function or our method, Fahrenheit to Celsius. We then have this public static line and scanner in the line, and that just allows us to get information entered by the user. So that allows us to get the information they've entered, which is what we've got here. So scanner in equals new scanner system.in, and that just collects the input that the person's put in. Then we've got our system.out print line, means put onto the screen, enter the temperature in Fahrenheit. Temperature is a variable we've created up here. It's a float variable, and we go equals in next int. So that just collects the next integer that the user enters on the screen. And now we change our temperature. We go temperature equals temperature minus 32 times 5 divided by 9, because this time we're going the other way, Fahrenheit to Celsius. And now we need to print that to the screen. And the way we do that with Java is system.out.println, print line, temperature in Celsius equals, and we add our variable temperature. So again, similar, but how we get information from the user just varies from each one. Let's look at our Visual Basic. Visual Basic's a little bit more complicated. Here's a graphical user interface for that, where we've got a text field up the top, 2 radio buttons, one to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius, one from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and then a button, and then a label that we would record the results in. So, private sub button 1 clicked basically is a method called when we click that first button. So when we click that button, this method is called. We have a system.object, and this is really just going through, that will be handled or called whenever a button is clicked. But once that button's clicked, we move into here. If radio 1 button checked, so if we go back up, so if this is radio 1 button, this is radio 2 button. So that first line is just this button's been clicked. Then it checks which radio button is checked. So if radio 1 button dot checked equals true, then label 1 dot text, which is where we're writing our answer, equals masked text box 1 dot text, and Fahrenheit, which is our variable, equals masked text box 1 dot text, which is what they've entered. Remember, masked text box is where they enter the number, minus 32 divided by 1.8. So basically what that's doing is saying set the label, the output to the display, textbook text as Fahrenheit equals, and then do the conversion of what they entered before. Else, if, that's basically another way of saying else. So else if radio button 2 is checked, which is radio button 2 checked equals true, then set the label, label 1.text equals, get the information from the text field that they've entered, and then print the label as Celsius equals, and do your conversion. Mask text box.1.text, which is the number they've entered, times 1.8 divided by, times 1.8 plus 32. That end sub is just a way of closing that sub method off. A little bit like the curly brackets. Let's look at HTML. HTML is a very common internet language. We want the user to enter 32 degrees Celsius. The computer output that we want is 32 degrees Celsius equals 89 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's look at how we might do that one. P in the brackets here is like print. So anything in between the two P's, with the backslash being the end, is printed to the screen. So we print, insert a number into the input fields below. And then we've got input ID equals C, 1 key up equals convert C degrees Celsius equals input ID equals F, 1 up key convert Fahrenheit, it calls degrees Fahrenheit. Now what does that mean? Really that's saying if they've put a C in it, then I want you to call the method degrees Celsius. If they've put an F, I want you to call the method degrees Fahrenheit. And I want you to send the input that they put in. So here we go. The next line basically says if the method was called convert degree, so it'll either be convert with a C or convert with an F, that will be sent to it. So if it's C, then we're sending that method to say convert to Celsius. So F equals document.getElement, and that basically gets the input that they entered. Dot value, so we're expecting it to be a value, and we times that by 9 divided by 5, so we do our conversion on it. Then we do document get element F dot value, and we round it. Else, so this means we would have sent an F. We want to do the opposite. We go C equals get element entered, do the conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and then round that number, that C that we just created, and that will round our number to the nearest whole number. Let's have a look at another language, C++. And this time we're going to be looking at basically converting similar kind of thing. Please enter the number, temperature in Fahrenheit, and then we want to go this in Fahrenheit equals this in Celsius. So how do we do it? We've got our method, and we've got our int main void. Now we create a variable float temp Fahrenheit, and then another variable temp Celsius, and then we've got this thing called count with the brackets with the arrows going that way. Please enter your temperature in Fahrenheit, and then sin, arrows going the other way, temp fer. Now what that means is when you've got arrows going this way, it's like print line. It says that we're sending things from the computer to the user. When we're going this way, it's going from the user to the computer. So that's saving what the user's entered is this variable temp Fahrenheit. Then we call the function temp Celsius equals convert temp, and then we want to go back out to the user. \n is just a return line, and then back out to the user, temp Fahrenheit, back out to the user, the label Fahrenheit equals, back out to the user, temp Celsius, and then the user Celsius, and then we end ln, which is end line. So the next thing we need to look at is this variable called convert, and we send the number the user's entered. So we've got float convert, float temp, it takes a variable, and in there we've got a local variable we call float temp cell. Temp cell equals temp fer, which is the information we got from the user, minus 32. We do the conversion and we return the temperature in Celsius. So we can go on to it further. If you want to follow the PowerPoint through, this will go through a bigger extension on converting between Fahrenheit, Celsius, Kelvin, and you can look at how you do that in C++ as well. But as you can see, there's a lot of similarities, but there are distinct syntax differences. So it's important to learn the differences in syntax, but once you get that, you can easily pick up other languages.